I ghosted my fiancée after she asked for a temporary open relationship before our wedding, and then she cheated when I said no. I have rewritten this a few times in an attempt to shorten it, but our history goes back to when we were kids. I'm looking for some advice as to what to do when I get home in 2 days. I am changing all names, obviously. Very sorry for the length of this monster. Jen and I had been friends since we were kids. Our parents were lifelong friends. We grew up together and started dating in our teens. It was like it was almost expected by our families. They had more plans for us than we did. When I was going for my master's, I had to move to another city, and Jen remained in our hometown working on her nursing degree. After a year of a long-distance relationship, we decided to remain friends and not have the pressure of our relationship control us. We both remained best friends and we both dated other people. It was weird because we always knew this was temporary and we would end up back together at some point. I graduated and stayed in the city I got my master's in and started working in my field. I waited for a transfer back to my hometown, and when I got it, I was so happy. Jen was in a long-term relationship, and he was a nice fellow, but I always got the feeling he was wary of our friendship. I understood the vibe and stepped back out of respect, although she and I would talk several times a year. My boss and mentor, I will call Paul, was a great guy, and we became good friends. He taught me the ropes, and one day came down from the ivory tower and wanted to talk. He explained there was an open position in a foreign city for 2 years, and it would be advertised shortly. He explained the position, and even though the money wasn't huge, all expenses such as rent, hotel, and expenses related to travel were covered. Basically, I would be based in Tokyo and have to travel once in a while to other Asian cities for a few days here and there. I thought about it, talked to my friends and parents. Paul said it was a great position, but it would be an excellent opportunity to prove myself and move up the career ladder. I thought, why not? I would be able to save most of my salary and gain valuable experience. Paul said he would talk to the old man and, if I wanted, recommend me. He explained that he had done something similar many years ago, and it had helped his career. So I went for it. The first year was horrible, getting used to the culture and social rules, not only in Japan, but the other countries I would visit for work. One thing that surprised me was how available women were everywhere I went. They loved foreigners. I got to sample the delights of the Orient. These weren't third world women. Most of them were highly educated. I had many friends with benefits and clearly told all of them I wasn't interested in long-term or marriage, as I was only staying temporarily. I ended up doing 2 more years. Paul would visit several times a year on vacation or to supervise some work, and I will admit we had some greasy times in a few cities, i.e., Angeles City in the Philippines and a few others. When my contract was over, I went back home and put a nice down payment on a house just outside the city. After living in a city of 37 million, I needed some space. I was home for a month, and while visiting my parents, Jen was there. She and the other guy had broken up a year ago, and we started talking more seriously, even though we had always had contact over the years. We started dating again. I refrained from sex no matter how much I wanted it, because I was afraid of what might happen. In Asia, I developed an addiction to changing partners, and I tried to control this desire before our relationship with Jen became serious. Everyone, including Jen, knew that I was dating other girls, but my photos with different women rarely appeared on social media. My mom called me a master pickup artist several times, and to be honest, it bothered me a little. Now is when things start to fall apart. Jen and I slept together, and, for lack of a better word, she was very surprised. She said I was different and was never like that before. She meant it like I had gained a lot of experience, to put it nicely. She asked me some questions, and I admit I did trickle truth her. I didn't tell her the exact number because even if it was divided by 3, it was scary. I had no doubt that I was and could be faithful to her. The seed I had inadvertently planted in her mind that night would create some serious issues later. Now, of course, our families were thrilled we were together. It was always supposed to be this way. We were doing great, and after speaking to her parents, I proposed. She moved in, and everything was great. There were, what I thought at the time, some red flags, like her asking if I was happy with her. Fast forward to December of 2019. Wedding was planned for June of 2020. We all know how 2020 went, don't we? Christmas was great, and close to New Year's we would have the first D-Day. I was sitting down doing some work on the PC, and Jen and her cousin Tammy were looking through some wedding stuff. I've also known Tammy since we were kids, and we were cool. Jen asks if we can talk, and Tammy walks into the living room and sits on the sofa. I want to sit at the table to talk to Jen. She starts by saying for me to not interrupt or freak out. She wants to talk about something. She then explains our difference in the bedroom and says she believes I wouldn't be satisfied with her, and eventually I would cheat on her, and she didn't want our future children and relationship to be ruined if I strayed. So here I was thinking, great, I'm about to get dumped. Just as I'm thinking things can't get worse, I hear the infomercial guy in my head. But wait, there's more. Jen asked me if I was willing to open the relationship so she could gain more experience, and it would help her feel less insecure. She stated I should not be worried, as I'm the only man she ever loved, and that's why none of her relationships had ever led to marriage. I did agree with her on that point, as I felt the same. Now, of course, I think this is a joke, and she is not serious at all. This really can't be happening, right? Since this was a year and a half ago, I will try my best to recall the main points. She says she will only be with random people and never with someone we know or work with. It won't happen with the same person twice, and there will be no emotional connection. I was like, what the F? When I realized she wasn't joking, I lost my breath. I didn't think it was possible for a heart to skip a beat and jump to the center of my throat. I'm not an angry or violent person, but now I am yelling. I'm starting to understand why Tammy stuck around close by. I yelled, "Tammy, did you put her up to this?" Tammy says she is just there to support Jen. Wow, thanks so much. So then Jen says I am free to do as I wish under the same rules, and I said no. I am so pissed at this point, and even writing this now I am raging. I then said, I don't want one-night stands, I just want one person. She says, who? I looked at Tammy, not in the eyes, and said, I want to F Tammy. Now I get a rise out of Jen, and Tammy wasn't expecting that. She's a bit red in the face and now uncomfortable. Jen says, no, she is family and someone we both know, and it is gross for me to even suggest it. I am now totally in bizarro world. Where the hell did this come from? We argued back and forth for a bit, and I told her if she does this, the relationship is over. I'm totally against this, and I love her, and we can work through everything together. But not this. I stormed off, grabbed my pillow, and went to the guest room. I could hear them downstairs for a bit, but couldn't make out what they were saying. It would have been a hilarious joke if it didn't last for an hour of conversation. I didn't sleep all night and was a bag of crap at work the next day. Jen started 2 weeks of night shifts that day, so at least we wouldn't be home together for that time, and we could both cool down and revisit this later. Dinner would be in the fridge for me every day with an I love you note. She would text frequently, but I kept my answers short. Thursday night of the next week of her night shift, I go to the PC to work over some files, and I notice an email notification on her account. It's a hotel reservation for a good hotel that's close to my office. I know it well, as I go often with coworkers. I'm thinking she is supposed to be working, but maybe she wants to apologize and take me for a night out. The next morning, I'm waiting for her text or call to invite me, but she only asks how my day was. Then she says she's so happy she only has to work one more night of the night shift. How does she have one more night in a hotel reservation? I was sick, stressing in my office. I started looking through some dating sites, especially profiles with no pics. I couldn't find anything. Paul pops in and asks me if I want to go for lunch and sees I'm a mess. He asks what's up, and I tell him. Paul's a hard men go their own way type, but has always supported my relationship with Jen. He suggests we go get lunch at some hotel restaurant and ice cream. No, not that place. He didn't know that part. We actually go for lunch, but I'm sick to my stomach. Can't eat. Don't even want to drink. He says I can't work like this and I can take as much leave as I need, paid or unpaid. I told him I can't be at my house anymore. I can't see her, and a part of me wants to believe it isn't true. I rush home, put as much of my stuff in my car as I can, and go back to the office. Paul says, let's go stake out the hotel and wait for her to check in. I mean, I am no PI or detective, more like Inspector Clouseau. I was really resisting this, but I really had to know. So we set up in the lounge bar, and I start pounding drinks, still hoping this wasn't real. Around 6:30, Paul taps me on the shoulder, and there she is at the front desk, not in uniform. I want to strangle her, scream, spit, cry. I don't know. We wait for 10 minutes after she gets in the elevator, and Paul and I walk to the front desk. I ask the reception to put me through to Jen's room, and it rings. As soon as she answers, I just start yelling. She sounds confused. Jen, I told you if you did this, it would be over. I'm done. Wedding off, relationship over. I hang up and get my butt out of there. Now where to go? I went back to Paul's, and now my phone is lighting up. The only person I called was my dad, and I explained in PG-rated terms what happened and that I needed to leave town for a bit. It wasn't a discussion. I feel bad for how I spoke to my old man. Phone didn't stop for 2 days. Everyone under the sun called me, and I didn't answer. I didn't know what to do. The only way I could explain how I felt was like walking around underwater. Paul mentioned some financial things I should deal with to protect myself. I wasn't even thinking about that. The house, wedding loans, the car. We kept separate accounts, plus one for the wedding and one for house-related bills. I couldn't care less. The next day, I emailed Jen and said this would be our last contact. I was leaving the city for a while, and the wedding and everything else was off. I called my dad back and spoke with him at length, and while he was crushed, he understood I needed time and space. He said he still hopes we could work it out. 10 days later, I boarded a plane and traveled to Bali. I never answered any of her or anyone's messages or emails. I don't know if she left the hotel that night or stayed. I didn't care. I eventually landed in Bali and climbed into a bottle for the next month, went offline except for my dad and work. I didn't even care if I got fired. I wish I could say I enjoyed myself, but I was mostly just drunk. I felt a lot of rage and shame and hate about how things went down. I kept in touch with Paul about my leave, and after 3 weeks he asked if I could run back to Tokyo to look after some things. We talked about the new global virus, and I mentioned coming back to Canada to settle things there as I was hearing rumors of potential lockdowns. I got to Tokyo on March 1st, and it felt good to get back to work, even if it was just a little. After hearing lockdowns were coming, Paul mentioned me getting back to Canada, but I said, meh, it's only going to be 30 or 60 days. I needed some time to plan my next move. 30 to 60 days? Fuck me. I was still in Japan for another year before I got vaccinated. By this time, I didn't really want to go home. My house was rented out and I was talking to family but refused any info about Jen. On September 21st, I received news my dad had a heart attack. He was doing well but would need a triple bypass. This surgery is serious, not as serious as it was 40 years ago, but I still wanted to see him, just in case. I knew when I got home it was going to turn into a crap show, and I really didn't want that. I just wanted to see my folks and thank Paul for all he had done for me, even as selfish as I was. But I knew I would have to see her, and I had no idea how I was going to feel. Update. After landing, I went to see my dad. He's looking good and actually looking forward to his surgery. Mom is doing well, but obviously concerned. I spent almost the first 24 hours by his side, and we talked about everything under the sun, but nothing heavy. I told him I am here for him, but I'm using this trip to reorganize my life, close some doors and open some new ones. On day 2, Paul and I met up at a local spot close to the office. Paul was already drinking. We talked about my dad, work, and he asked if I had any contact with Jen, which I said no to. He then informed me the old man, our boss, wanted to see me, but considering my father, it could wait. I told him we may as well get it over with. Meeting Jen was one of the things on my list. We went to the old man's office. He started ranting about responsibility and dedication, then looked at Paul and asked why they should keep me around. Paul said I do great work. I've saved accounts and acquired new ones. Plus, they can't find anyone to do the job for 20% below market salary like they're paying me. Then, they both start laughing like in Goodfellas. The old man leaned in and gave me advice. If God himself cannot please a woman, then how can you? Brother, please don't kill yourself. Turns out Paul and the old man are related. Paul then tells me I'm not being fired. I'm being promoted. We went drinking, and he told me I should meet Jen to get closure. He said once I resolved that, we could talk about my future. I unblocked her on Facebook and sent her a PM asking to meet for dinner. We agreed. When she arrived, she looked wonderful. We exchanged a short, awkward hug. We talked about my dad, small talk, but I was falling apart inside. Eventually, she apologized for what happened. I asked if she was sorry she got caught or sorry for how she hurt me. She admitted insecurity was part of it. I told her I didn't need her to be perfect or experienced. I just needed her to be mine. I compared her betrayal to the frog and scorpion story. She started sobbing. She slid the ring box across the table. I told her I didn't want it. I said I wanted to be home playing with the baby we would have by now. She broke down crying. After I cooled down, we talked about life and agreed reconciliation was not on the table, but we could coexist as friends because our families are close. We hugged for a long time before parting.